Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Cumberland Thunder Podcast. This is something that we are trying out, something that we have wanted to do in this format for a really long time.
Yep.
And so you get to figure it out along with us. We're going to talk about everything from music to music and fashion. No.
Dickies.
And you've got your Cumberland Guitars hat on there,
Cumberland
I see.
Guitars, Jamestown, Kentucky, Mark Blasco. Come see about it.
Yeah, they have helped us out a lot. I'm staring at a couple of guitars that we have purchased over there, and fantastic. Not a sponsor, but hey.
Donate it. He supports everyone so much.
He does.
We owe him free publicity.
Exactly.
To the 20 people that might tune in.
No one supports live music, I think, or just your local music scene like Mark Blasco of Cumberland Guitars.
Nobody.
So you'll notice that right now it's myself, Joshua Tomlin. We got Josh Carey over here.
Yep.
And in future, of course, we're going to have Abby on here. We'll have Seth on here. And hopefully we'll have some guests.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so we'll see what this turns into. And I've also, you've already got yours out. I haven't opened mine yet. We'll get the good... This is, we've mentioned it in our vlog before, but this is ski. And I've had you explain ski in the vlog before. But for those who maybe haven't seen it, give us a good...
Oh, listen. Listen. This right here is dollar store temperature right now. Let me get a good shot of that labeling. Skis the most that you could ever want in a citrus lemon drink. Mm-hmm. It's not as syrupy as Mountain Dew, yet not as tart as a Sun Drop or not as bland as Mountain Lightning for you off-brand aficionados, which I love Mountain Lightning, don't get me wrong. But ski, it's the right man for the job all the time. All day, every day.
Ski is fantastic. And so the thing about ski is it's only available really here in Kentucky.
Yeah. We are ski rich here in Southern Kentucky,
yes.
That's for sure. And I'm happy for it. You love to see it.
I know that for those who really, really like it, I think you can buy ski on Amazon for, I don't know the price, but it's quite an exorbitant amount. It's like $30 or something if you want to get a 12-pack or something like that. Yeah.
I didn't know that. Well, man could make a buck off of eBay and
selling that ski.
Yeah.
Make a little money. Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's very sugary. I mean, in taste, of course, but it's not healthy, but it's good.
Yeah. We're not endorsing unhealthy living. But if you're going to, you might as well drink ski.
So, in this podcast, well, first of all, check out this space. So we've got a good chunk of your record collection, which is here behind us. I need to bring some of mine over because Abby and I have a record collection as well. And I noticed, I'm gonna pull this out.
Yeah.
Actually, we were just listening to part of this the other day.
Yeah.
This is the Henson's Lift the Roof Off record from 1980-something, 84. And I believe this was recorded in Louisiana.
Yeah.
And actually has a song on it that we used to do, still occasionally do, but quite often in concert. Soldier in the Army.
Yep.
That was one of the first songs that we actually learned, and it was from a YouTube version of a recording off of this album.
Yep.
And for those who haven't heard the music of the Hensons, so this kind of gets into the whole idea of I thought today we could talk a bit about genres and what do we define ourselves as, and what other people, in terms, I guess, that other people may understand or get familiar with. So I don't think it's any secret that the Hensons are a huge inspiration for me and really for both of us. Mm-hmm. But their thing was, when they came along, they were in Southern gospel music, and their inspirations were the Happy Goodman family.
Yeah.
So you listen to a lot of their early stuff, which was actually produced here in Kentucky, Madison, Kentucky,
Madisonville.
I think. Madisonville.
Yeah.
And so at the Goodman studio, and so they, it was very. If you've never heard the Happy Goodman family, it's a lot of kind of convention style singing, what we would call almost like shape note style singing, but with a more excitement added to it.
Yeah.
Unlike, so when Southern gospel kind of came along in popularity and the Statesmen came around and you had the Blackwood Brothers, they were very exciting and the vocals were fantastic, but it was also it was extremely polished. Mm-hmm. And when the Happy Goodman family came along, it was still polished, but it was almost like that excitement was, they had a bigger band, because it was with the Statesmen, it was always Hovey playing the piano. Yeah. So when the Happy Goodman family came along, you had Aaron Wilburn playing guitar, you had Eddie Crook on piano, and kind of in their big heyday, and drums. I think they were one of the first, if my memory serves me correctly, at least one of the first bands in that genre to pull out drums on stage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And sometimes you still get funny looks when you pull drums on stage.
For whatever reason.
But so then the Hensons came along, and the Hensons, like the Goodmans, were Pentecostal, and they had that, that fire and that drive and that energy. And their band, I would say, any live band, especially at least in that genre of music, I think the Hensons band of the 80s, unrivaled.
Oh, I agree.
Unrivaled.
Yeah. The arrangements were so spot on.
Yeah.
And just the ins and the outs of when your electric would kick in to when the piano would kick in. Oh, yeah. Was in the steel guitar playing in any of their live performances or recorded is second to none.
And it's completely different from, there's kind of that, what I would call like the George Jones era kind of steel, which is kind of that crying steel guitar sound. It's like, it's almost like somebody's picked up a Les Paul and it's fast. It's more akin to the closest thing I can compare it to, I suppose, in secular music would be like when Ricky Skaggs came along with like Country Boy or something like that, and you hear some of that steel work. Yeah. Very much like that.
Yeah.
And Kelly Back, who still does electric guitar, still does sessions for a lot of groups today. Who's is he on this album?
I don't think he is.
I don't think he is on this album.
Because I listened to it the other day and I was waiting for his name and it didn't come up, and I was like, oh, bummer.
But his playing has actually been a really big inspiration to me, just in the way that, his phrasing and the licks that you put in.
Yeah.
And consistent. That's the thing about the band. So consistent. Mm-hmm. And so kind of springboarding off of that, the Hensons it was around that time you got groups like the Hensons, and in the 80s when you kind of had that, up until that point, a lot of Southern gospel music had been more, honestly, entertainment based. You had, it was theaters, and there's always exceptions to all of this. So this isn't how everything was, but you had the Statesmen doing the theaters. You had a lot of these groups. And then the Hensons came along, and there was kind of this spiritual resurgence where it became more like a church service. It wasn't just a concert. You know, Kenny would preach, Ronnie would preach. You would hear, they would, even on this album alone, there's kind of condensed versions of things that you can find longer versions on YouTube of them doing. And so it became more, you know, traveling and going to churches as opposed to theaters. And there was kind of a split that happened at that time. And I think the best example of that, of a group that kind of got caught in all of that and forged their own path, is the Imperials.
Yeah.
So we've talked about the Statesmen. Of course, Jay Cass was with the Statesmen very famously, also with the Imperials. And for a while, they were kind of that Southern gospel quartet. And then Russ Taff came along, and he had that, again, that kind of Pentecostal influence. But they took theirs in a more contemporary direction, so they were considered contemporary Christian music. They were still a quartet, but considered contemporary Christian music. As opposed to the Oak Ridge Boys.
Yes.
Who went from being Southern gospel to a country quartet.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, so it was around that time that a lot of just, a lot of kind of offshoots started happening.
Yeah.
And we saw the birth of modern contemporary Christian music. And at that time, you saw the cathedrals rise to prominence and become who they were. And so all that to get to present day. And the state of Christian music in general.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think it's a secret that me personally, I'm not the biggest fan of modern contemporary, what we would call modern contemporary Christian music.
Yeah.
There's always exceptions. I think there's a lot of great songwriting being done. I think specifically my issue would be with modern, what we might call praise and worship music, that tends to be very repetitive and not very lyrically, not a lot of meat to the lyric.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And so I try to always make sure any song we do, at least, is lyrically, not just lyrically sound. That should be a given. You know, you want it to be theologically correct, but that it actually says something.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that it's very ambient, the new stuff. And in doing that and trying to, what I feel like, trying to make it accessible to everyone, which there's nothing wrong with accessibility per se. I think that at least in modern Christian music, I kind of feel like that the folks that arrange that music and write that music, maybe not with this intent per se, but it almost seemed it's almost like the audience is not given enough credit, that they could not follow something a little bit more meaty or weighty.
We see the same thing happening in modern country music.
Oh, certainly.
Where it's very
garbage.
Yeah, it's all very top 40 bass. So it's no longer a DJ sitting there spinning records for the people in their hometown. It's now a computer, an algorithm, or the A&R person at the record label that says this is what your single needs to be. This is what and so that's what gets consumed and makes money. And so they look at that and go, oh, okay, so this is what makes money. Let's make more of it. And so it's an endless cycle. They feed the loop.
Yeah.
So it continues.
Yeah. Yeah. Which we're coming at it from sort of a ministerial perspective as well, in that if we went out and sang, if we went out and sang the majority of our set as a contemporary modern Christian, we could throw a couple in there, but I don't think that we would get away with doing the whole thing. In that it is so ambient, and it is so that I would, unless your audience is geared for that
mm-hmm.
and ready for that, we wouldn't be able to pull that off. Because also we've geared ourselves towards more of a, where our song is more ministerial,
mm-hmm.
more of a. It's not a sermon, but there are, like, it's a sermonette,
yeah,
I guess.
Yeah, there's a point to it. There's a message in it.
Yes, and something that we want to get across to the hearer, or the listener rather, and yeah, I mean, it's almost sort of sleepy.
I'm with you.
Sleepy music in a way.
Yeah.
Now there is the big build. There's always the big build. Yeah. But the thing is, what kills me, I mean, everybody knows their favorite, secular song by heart, and sing along with on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 9 times out of 10, could be pretty complicated, or all the parts,
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not bagging on these people, believe me, but we typically don't get with it.
Well, I think you were talking about it has the build. If it's always expected, does it become less power? Does that make it less powerful?
I think so. Personally, I think that listen, maybe not to me, maybe not to the musician. The thing is, what we have to remember to do is to take ourselves out of what spot we're in on stage,
mm-hmm.
and put ourselves in the seat, or as a worshiper or a listener, and how would we participate in the songs that we're presenting?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times I don't find myself singing along. But that's not just with, I'll be honest, it's not just with contemporary, it's just about with everything. I'm pretty dead. But that's awful. But I don't know.
Yeah, there's something to be said. So on the Southern gospel side of things, just as in contemporary, you've got the ambience and the build and the, Southern gospel, you can go to almost any concert, and somewhere towards the end you expect to hear that big ballad with the orchestra.
Yeah.
That may I note is not there.
Yeah.
The previously taped orchestra.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think if you come to expect it every time, and a lot of the music business side is about expectations. Maybe the audience goes expecting a certain thing.
Yeah.
But I think if it's always the same, it will cease to be powerful.
Yeah. We were talking about it. Well, I think more so in 2019, we went to a few plays that were going on.
Right.
And after the play was over, one of our friends was in the play,
mm-hmm.
And it was a musical. And after it was over, I think it was a few days later, I came up to you and I was like, was it just me? Or did it feel like that the backing track to what these people were singing could have just as easily been behind a Southern gospel
oh yeah
contemporary right now?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I honestly think that the more I hear like Broadway soundtracks, which I'm a fan of musicals, but the more I hear those, and I think, oh, we've stolen a lot from them.
Oh yeah,
like And when I say we, I mean the modern Christian music world. I think, there's been a lot stolen from them.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that for a long time. And that just goes into, talking about that being a backing track. The decline of live music. Now, obviously, the last year, we've not seen any, unfortunately.
A straight line down.
Exactly. But in the years preceding and leading up to, and I'm sure, unfortunately, in the years following, there has been a great lack in the Southern gospel world of actual live musicians. Now, a lot of this falls back to the reasons behind it are always not enough money to pay musicians.
Yeah.
You gotta, the more people you have, the bigger operation you're running, then you have to worry about housing, feeding. If you have a bus, you have to make sure you got enough bunks for everybody. If there has to be, if it's your full-time job, there has to be a way to keep that consistent. Yeah. And the argument is always, well, it's just not enough.
Yeah.
We don't get enough. And I would argue, and I know there are other contributing factors, but I would argue that perhaps if we saw more live bands, and not just, I'm not talking about just adding a couple live musicians. I mean full live bands where there's no playback, there's no pre-recorded orchestra. What you're seeing is what you're getting. Just good.
No need for anything else except for what's on the stage.
I feel like such an old person. I tell you what, it used to be.
Well, but the thing is, this has been a long time coming.
Oh yeah,
this has been going on for a long time. Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if we saw that, we would begin to see. We would begin to see numbers increase in concert because here's the thing: with the introduction of soundtracks into Southern gospel music, anyone can be the star.
Yeah.
Every regional group has access to the exact same music that the Grammy Award-winning, Dove Award-winning group is singing right now.
Yep.
And while I know in some cases, especially, I know there's a lot of churches that don't have musicians and they need, music and that's one thing. But when a group regionally starting out survives solely on that, I think that it cheapens the experience. And for the audience, the ones that can tell the difference between those that are at a higher level, and that's no disrespect to anybody, but the ones that can tell, those who've really polished and worked on their craft, and those who haven't, unfortunately, I feel like the crowd that can tell the difference is getting smaller, maybe.
Yeah.
Or at least there's just, if they can't, there's just some apathy there. There's just some not caring. They hear the same songs that the quote unquote big guys are doing. They get their itch scratched and they're good to go.
Yeah.
There's nothing special being offered. And which is the one thing that is so different. People outside the Southern gospel industry look at with great confusion, just in terminology alone, because they're groups and not bands.
Right.
And that's something I've always, as Cumberland Thunder, we've always tried to bill ourselves as a band. I don't want to be seen as a group or as a trio. Because there's three voices singing, but we're not a trio. we're a band, and no part is, I don't feel, more important than the other. It takes all of the parts together, musically and vocally, to make it what it is. You wouldn't think of any great secular band that has their front man. Well, we don't call that a solo act.
Right.
That's not secular soloist of the year at the Secular News Fan Awards.
Yeah.
That's a band. That's band of the year. That's because they realize that the collective sum of their parts, or their value, is greater than the sum of their parts.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that, well, even in these days, I think that's something that the Hensons understood. And a few over the years, I feel like, have understood that and used that to their advantage. But it's becoming lost on a lot of people.
Yeah. I think that as far as the terminology is concerned, we've always wanted to. We're not trying to be snooty or anything like that.
No.
But you are what you are. And we said from the beginning that we wanted to try to be as real as possible. Mm-hmm. We do our best to not record anything that we can't duplicate on stage.
Right.
There's a few songs on our last album that we didn't do just because maybe we had an idea about the song, we pursued that idea, we put it down, and we can't really duplicate it
right
yet. Anyways, I mean, maybe we can down the road, but we can't right now on stage, and that's fine. That's totally okay. That's a far cry from us having an orchestra
right
in a machine. And I'm not, listen, we've got friends that will probably get mad at us even right now for saying this. And we don't mean anything by it.
No.
At all.
And the simple fact of the matter is, when it comes down in Christian music, the point, this is my, I feel like I could say this in my sleep now. The threefold purpose of Christian music, the 3 points biblically are, first and foremost, praise God. Secondly, minister to the Christians. And third, bring the story of the gospel to the lost. If it's doing those 3 things effectively, that's fine. You're accomplishing your mission that you're setting out to do. But I think this is my soapbox, by cheapening the music, by forsaking your art just because it's quote unquote gospel music and it's good enough.
Yeah.
I think you are telling God that he's not worthy of your best. And if you're doing your best, then that's fantastic. But I think God is not stingy with talent.
No.
And when he gives it to you, I think he expects you to use it to the fullest. And I just feel that there are a lot of people, a lot of artists who have taken the easy road and refused to use it to the fullest.
Yeah.
And maybe they don't even realize that. But I think to effectively do all 3 of those things, you need to be doing everything in your power, because music is a worshipful experience, and we're supposed to worship in spirit and in truth. And I think part of that spirit and truth, part of the truth, is you have a talent that you've been given, and if you're not using it to its fullest capacity, it's like you're hiding part of it.
Mm-hmm.
almost like you're lying to yourself and to the others and to your audience, and it's not fully in truth.
I get that. I get what you're saying. I want to be balanced as well too. There's a group of the friends of ours that got a piano player recently. Yes. Because their new baritone singer, her wife, is now their piano player. Now, before that, they were basically solely on tracks. And I asked the fellow why that they didn't get more people or like more musicians and things like that. And his answer to me was the commitment. Nobody seems to be willing to make that commitment, and that is an issue. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that's something that should be addressed, not just as far as us on this podcast, as far as that's concerned, or YouTube channel. But I agree with you on that. I think sometimes people just don't try. Mm-hmm. I feel like the guys that we're talking about, we can vouch for them,
right?
And say that they probably tried.
They've made the commitment. They know what they're supposed to be doing.
And the area that they live in should be no shortage.
Right. There should be no shortage of musicians, as it goes back to a phrase that I heard a lot in my childhood growing up in church. You gotta be willing.
Yeah, you gotta be willing.
You gotta be willing. And people unfortunately aren't willing. A very great man of God, Jim Elliott, who was a missionary, and look him up sometime. Fantastic stuff. But he said that my mind is blanking. He basically his quote is, he is no fool who gives what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose. And essentially, if you give your life fully to God, because it's not yours anyway, mm-hmm. then you will be taken care of. It's as the Bible says, what good does it profit a man if he gains the whole world but loses his soul? And so I think commitment is a huge issue. Whether that be we get super theological here if we want to. Whether that be a faith issue or what it might be.
Well, as this is gonna get Josh might jump over the table at me after this. I say this, but as far as gospel singers go, mm-hmm. Traveling, we're probably in the lower tier of line of fire when it comes to any sort of like. It's not hard to commit to this, in my opinion.
Right. No, I would agree with that.
It's a different conversation when you're talking about being like missionary.
Right.
Going to places where you could die.
Yeah. It's a big difference from even at our busiest year when we did, 70, 80 dates in 1 year.
We're part-timers, by the way. Give us a break.
Even in that, we enjoyed what we were. There was still a level of enjoyment, and there was kind of that instant, that connection with the audience, and you get people telling you how much they appreciate it, and though you don't do it for accolades, it's nice to hear that encouragement, and so it makes it easier in that sense. But compare that to people that do just completely give absolutely everything. Yeah. I have some friends who are missionaries, and they spend part of their time in, essentially they split their year in half. So for 6 months they're here in the States, and 6 months they're in Egypt.
Yeah.
And if you know anything about that part of the world, that's not the most hospitable place towards Christianity. And they're there and doing a fantastic work. And it's amazing what they're doing. Which, by the way, that would be a fantastic person for the podcast.
Let's do that.
We'll have to work that one out. I think you'd do it. But yeah, like that is a commitment that they have made as a family, and that's a hard decision to make, because it affects not only just the head of household or the one who might be called to be a missionary, but it's a calling that honestly has to be placed on the whole family, because that's who it affects.
Yeah.
And it goes back to the idea of God doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called.
Yeah.
And with that, I think you have to realize that almost without fail, every concert, and I'm sure you've gotten this too, I'll have at least one person come up to me and say something to the effect of, I wish I could I wish I could play piano. I wish I could play guitar. I wish I could sing. I wish I could do any particular thing. And a lot of times it ends with like you do. I wish I could do that like you do. I just don't have it. I can't do that. God didn't give me that. And my answer is always the same for those people. It's always, well, you may not be able to, but there's something that you can do a whole lot better than I can. We all have our talent. Mm-hmm. We all. Usually, I'll say, we've all got our thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. and that's true. There are. Let me tell you, singing at some church homecomings, there are some dear ladies of the church that have fixed some meals for us and kept our bellies full.
There's a talent
that I did not get that.
Yeah,
I have.
Me neither.
I've only recently become comfortable with boiling water, and so that's something that and you think, is that a talent? Yeah, absolutely. There have been people who, when we walk into a venue, have made us feel so welcome and so at home. And I think there's a true gift of hospitality, a kind of a spirit of hospitality, if you will, that is needed. And if that's you that has that, put that to use.
Yeah.
And I am not the greatest. Listen, if you are a people person, I'm not the greatest people person. My wife tells me I can't read social cues. So but if you are somebody that is a quote unquote people person, that's God given. Use that. Use that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, it just speaks to, I think it just speaks to, that, everybody has a field of mission. Mm-hmm. And I think that, wherever it is that somebody's been placed, or wherever you are in life, I think that we should use that as a mission field, no matter where we are. Mm-hmm. But I just thinking about those missionaries, man. We talk about all the time, or when we were out every weekend, we would either you or I, mostly you, would say something to the effect of, if you're not saved, we would love to speak with you about that and to share with you the gospel. But the thing is about missionaries is wherever they go, most of the time that question could be answered in the negative by everyone that they see. Where we are in the buckle of the Bible Belt, it's a lot different.
Oh, yeah.
And whether somebody's telling the truth or not, they 9 times out of 10 will say,
oh, yeah,
that they know.
Because that's what they're supposed to say.
Yeah, they know Jesus. They go to church.
Yeah.
You know. But not out there, man. Not out there. I've heard some horror stories, people getting overrun by rebels in a war fraught environment just so they could share the gospel.
Yeah.
And
people think we have it bad.
Yeah. I mean, I can't believe, we all have their moments, but I can't believe that I ever felt sorry for myself ever out on the road for any reason.
Oh, yeah. We have never, to this day still, regardless of anything that's happened in this country, we have never seen true persecution to the likes of what people other places in the world have had to deal with and are still currently dealing with.
Yeah.
And I think we should count ourselves blessed.
Oh, yeah.
And instead of, I think, getting into that woe is me attitude, pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and go decide to do something about it. Actually offer encouragement and help to those who truly are in need.
It would have been easy to say that, especially this past year.
Oh, yeah.
It'd been like, man, we can't go out and do... I'm thinking to myself, man, there's a missionary somewhere that's stuck.
Yes,
that maybe
absolutely.
that they're supposed to come home and they can't.
Right.
And they just gotta be there.
They have to be there.
Oh my gosh, the faith.
They have to endure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That got deep.
It did. I didn't mean for it to get, but I mean,
I liked it.
Maybe we needed it.
I'm for it.
Maybe we needed it. We ought to do a mission trip sometime.
We should. Well, we have been given the opportunity to the family that I was talking about earlier. Basically, they just said, "Say the word, and we'll take you to Egypt one time."
All right,
we'll see about that.
We should do it.
Yeah.
I mean, woo! I mean, yeah, man.
But all that to say. Jesus, man. Those folks, I really think that there's something about them. Support your missions, man. Mm-hmm.
I can't believe this has turned into a
give to your
call to arms here.
All you Southern Baptists, you be putting the money in that Lottie Moon offering now.
Yeah. No, I know, man. I'm telling you that. Those folks need everything that they can get, and we're not talking about just handing out Bible tracts somewhere.
Oh no,
we're talking about
Well, essentially starting from scratch.
Yeah,
I know. I always think of when I think of what it takes to be a missionary. I think of the Apostle Paul, and I have heard people make the comparison. I've actually heard it said that Peter must have been a better preacher than Paul, because when Peter preached on the day of Pentecost, there were 3,000 souls saved. And then when we read about Paul, whenever he would preach, there would be just a few people who would approach him afterwards. But the thing that we have to realize, when Peter was preaching, he was preaching to a group of mostly Jews who had gathered for the feast there in Jerusalem, and they already had a foundation. They knew who God was.
Yeah.
All he had to do was say, okay, you've got the law, you've got Moses, you've got the prophets, you already believe that stuff. Here's the one who fulfilled all that.
Yeah.
And once their eyes were open to that, they were like, oh, and they had that foundation. Then we have Paul, who goes to the Gentiles and goes to Athens in Greece, where he sees altars to every quote-unquote God, and even one that has an inscription, in case they missed one, that just says, to the unknown God. Yeah. And basically, Paul has to start from scratch and go, okay, there is a God.
Yeah.
This is who he is, and completely build from the ground up. And I think you can't neglect, if you don't have a foundation to build on, then I think that's why a lot of we believe in preaching Jesus. At times, though, I think we use Jesus like a Band-Aid.
Oh, certainly.
In the sense that we, if we're trying to reach people, we're just going and saying, hey, believe in Jesus.
Yeah.
Believe in Jesus. And they're going, what?
Trust him.
Why? For what?
He's the answer.
To what?
Yeah.
And again, I think that is almost a not exclusively, but very much a Bible Belt issue here where we live, because we're so, I could walk out the doors of this building, and within 10 minutes, within 5 minutes, I could be to about 15 different churches.
Yeah, definitely.
Of varying denominate. Choose your flavor.
Mm-hmm.
Which one what do you feel like this week?
We've got mega church, we've got country church, we've got countryer church, we've got
exactly.
We've got redneck church, we've got one room church, we've got church that seats a few, churches that seats a lot, churches that shout, churches that are very quiet.
Everything.
We've got everything. But none of those will save you.
No. It's not, as Squire Parsons once said, it's not the name over the door.
That's right.
And that's true. Yeah. Unless you have the foundation, all the other stuff is secondary.
How amazing must that have been, though, at the time? Not all the other stuff. I mean, Paul went through the ringer.
Oh, yeah.
When all of them were put through the ringer. Mm-hmm. And most of them died just for the cause of Christ and the early church. But to not really have any fingerprints on anything. Right. Paul didn't come in the name of anybody.
No, he didn't come. You read about, he even chastised them for saying, well, I'm part of Paul's bunch.
Yeah,
That's my paraphrase, but that
is that not early denomination?
Oh yeah. Well, some of Paul, some of Apollos, some, and that verse comes back to there's an old joke, and I won't go into the whole bit, but it was what's that comedian Enos. Someone will correct me. They'll know the joke. But essentially, they're trying to stop a man from jumping off a bridge and committing suicide. And so they're trying to find anything in common with him. And they're like, "Are you a Christian?" And the guy's like, "I think so." He goes, "Oh, where do you go to church?" And he said, "Well, I'm a Baptist." And he's like, "Oh, I'm a Baptist too." And he goes, "What kind of it?" "Well, I'm making up denominations here. I'm a Western Baptist." "Me too. I'm a Western Baptist too. Of what order?" "Well, Western Baptist of the North District." "Me too." And it goes on and on and on. It just these fine details. They have so much in common. And finally, it gets down to the very last thing, and they differ on just the very last thing. And so the man goes, "What? Then die, heretic!"
Oh,
now
man.
That's dark, but we've almost gotten to that point where it's that idea of our bunch is the only bunch going.
Yeah.
I well remember in recent years, especially visiting as many different churches and venues and seeing as many different types of people and different worship styles, having the realization hit me of, oh, these other people love Jesus too. And realizing that maybe I've been wrong about a few things.
What? But yeah, but the story that you were mentioning, the sermon at Mars Hill. If you just want like a shot in the arm one day, read it. It's not very long.
No, it's not very long. It's in the book of Acts.
I'm fairly certain we may not have even gotten the whole thing.
Oh no! I mean, it's fantastic. Who better to, aside from obviously the messages of Jesus in the Gospels, who better a preacher to hear from than the Apostle Paul?
Yeah.
And yeah, definitely take that and read that, and it's just solid truth.
Yeah.
Just unadulterated, straight down, just guns blazing.
Yeah. Because he wasn't trying to win them into a congregation.
No. Yeah. He wasn't trying to. There was no church to invite them to be a part of, church building.
Yeah.
To say, hey,
come
everybody
see us over here.
See us Sunday morning.
Yeah.
We got coffee.
Yeah,
there's no money to be made. If anything, for sure, he's Paul is not passing an offering plate every time that he's. Now there's some further things about money that churches would send to Paul and to help him on his travels, but yeah, he's not going and passing an offering plate every sermon that he gives to a bunch of non-believers.
Yeah.
Think about let's think about this for a moment. If you want, and there are a few churches who have changed the way they do this, and I commend them for that.
Yeah.
But if you are truly wanting the lost to come through your doors, don't expect the lost person to drop money in the collection plate when it goes by.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, just a bigger way of saying don't expect the world to act like anything but the world. And that's what a lot of it boils down to. We should never be surprised when the world acts like the world.
Yeah.
Don't expect them to act like Christians because they're not. Now, obviously, we want to live a life in front of them, and we want to witness to them, and we want them to be converted. But we can't legislate our own morality to a point that everyone is expected to act like a Christian.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, the nature of man is a sinful nature, not a good one. Man is inherently evil rather than good.
We just end up looking self-righteous.
Right. Yeah.
And there's none to be had.
Yeah.
We're all garbage.
Your righteousness is as your own righteousness is as filthy rags.
Yeah.
That's in the book.
Yeah. Gosh. Man. That's all we got.
Mm-hmm.
It's all we can lay claim to.
When we, by faith, when we have the faith to finally realize that we in ourselves aren't enough and we have to turn to somebody else.
Yep.
And we realize that Jesus is the answer. First, that takes admitting that there's a problem, which is, the first step of when you go into AA, they have to first admit that they're an alcoholic or that there is a problem. Otherwise, the rest is null and void. So you have to first admit there's a problem to be fixed and realize you can't do it yourself. And then once you finally get that realized, then you know that you need someone to help you if you can't do it yourself. And in doing that faith alone, the Bible says, is imputed unto us as righteousness. Abraham, when he was still Abram, went to a land that he didn't know where he was going, and he really didn't know how to get there. He was trusting God. And his faith to make that decision and turn away from everything he had ever known, not any great good work, not any money that he gave, not any charitable work that he did. None of that. It was just his faith trusting that God's way was the best way. That's what was seen as righteousness from God's perspective.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So what genre of music are we again?
Ska, I think.
Ska. We're big in Sheboygan.
Oh man, we should have another theological discussion again.
For it.
I don't even know if that was theological.
I think it counts. I think it counts. No, I like where that went.
We should get somebody on here that knows like way more than we do.
I'd be for that.
We should get your dad.
Get Dad on here. We could even get some. Hey, I know some folks that work at Campbellsville University. We get some theology professors in here. We could go way over my own head.
I'm here for it, man. Anything to remind me just where old Josh stands. That's what it's all about for me, man. At the end of the day, remembering.
Oh yeah.
You know, I'm not looking. We're not supposed to look back or anything like that. As far as like, but we're not supposed to long for the old days or anything like that. But it is a good reminder of what it all means for you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now So.
Yeah. The Hensons.
Available in store. No.
Available in.
Probably on eBay. Perhaps you could find one. I don't know.
I think I did it.
I had this on cassette growing up, but the album version actually has 2 albums in it, and it has more than what the cassette has. It's fantastic.
It is. If you can find it, get it, buy it. You know. I did do a deep dive one time. I say deep dive. It's not a deep dive. I typed in the words, the Hensons. And
did you scroll past page 2?
No, because I was on eBay. I was there wasn't much past, but I specifically I was on a live album kick.
Mm-hmm. I love live albums.
I was looking for anything and everything. And I remembered that one, and Out of the West They Came. I wanted that Henson's album, and I found them, but somebody was awful proud of them.
Yeah,
and that's great. If they could got over $100 for it, more power to them.
Yeah. So I know you have Lift the Roof Off. But you don't have Out of the West They Came.
No.
I have Out of the West They Came, but I don't have Lift the Roof Off. So together, 2 halves make a whole. We complete each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's all kinds of other stuff back here. We'll have to pull some of these out
for sure.
We can do this each podcast. We can pull out a random record, see what we find.
Yeah. Oh, and we'll put it on top of the record player.
Yeah. Set it up in Record of the Week, Album of the Week. You know what? And this is sort of just on the idea of genres, but one of my favorite things that we ever got told that made me so happy, and this is what I like. A lady, we had got finished with a concert, and she said, my husband and I have completely different tastes in music. She said, I'm a very traditional, old songs, hymns, Southern gospel, that kind of thing. He's really big into contemporary music, more modern things. And she said, you guys are the first band, first music that we both like and enjoy. And I was like, that's what I want.
That's the sauce.
I don't want to be the one that only is for a specific crowd. I want to be the one that everyone can actually enjoy.
Yeah.
So I hope that's the case.
I think you can have a sound. Everybody says you need to find a sound and then stick with it. I think that you can do that and still appeal to a wide array of people. Because we like so much different.
We do.
So much
That's
different
the thing.
stuff.
Our influences are all over the place. And we can even, once we get Abby and Seth on here as well, we can talk about, that'd be a good thing to talk about for a while, as everyone's individual influences, because I know we all kind of got raised with different things. You and I probably more similarly than anybody else. But, there were a lot of influences that influence our arranging style and all of that. So, that would be something to explore.
But you tell me what you think of this.
Okay.
So, in the discussion of how genres get decided for bands these days,
right?
Especially these days, I feel like it was different back however long ago. Because I'm not sure if the Hensons that back then, if they were cutting records today, maybe the same songs, maybe the same arrangements, maybe the same everything besides the sound, the sounds that are popular today are not the sounds that were popular then. I think the audience decides. I think they tell you where you're at.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
Because I think sometimes we're getting too big of a rush of like trying to tell people what we are.
Right.
You know, it's like, well, it's actually supposed to be this, this, and this. And they're like, all right, I hear this. And they can't be wrong, though.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it is one of those things where the audience essentially decides. Now, in modern music, both in the Christian world and the secular world more so, but in both, before a huge audience really ever hears anybody, there's usually been a producer, the A&R director at a record label, somebody that comes along and says, okay, this is your guys' sound, at least for this album. Mm-hmm. And so the audience is kind of almost force-fed, like we were talking about that cycle. Yeah. And that, I kind of think, works to their detriment. It is better, I think, when an audience kind of decides. This is something this has been a hard pill for me to swallow. No one ever ends up playing the music they actually wanted to play.
Yeah.
And that sounds depressing, but it's a good thing. Well, here's the thing. Whoever your hero is that inspired you, everybody's got somebody. I have several. Whoever that person is, it honestly starts out usually from a place of wanting to be what that person is.
Yeah.
Whether it be a band, a solo artist, whatever, you want to be what that person is. But you can't, because there already is that. Mm-hmm. So you have to take that influence and channel it into something new. Yeah. You have to channel it into something that is you. And people connect with when you are completely yourself.
Yep.
I've learned you cannot be successful. And there are actually a lot of YouTube channels that are growing, that are testaments to this. You can't be successful doing what you think is going to be popular, because people can tell that your heart's not in it.
Yeah.
Do something you're passionate about, and you'll find the audience for it. And even us in our very early days. Granted, we've been a band for almost 5 years.
It's weird.
And there hasn't been, I wouldn't say there's been a huge shift in sound from what we did. But definitely, I know the things night to night that are going to get a response. Mm-hmm. And those are typically the things that stay in, that we continue to do.
Yep.
And also part of it, I think, for a band who's playing together, is you find what style you best play together at.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
I know that I could not, as much as I enjoy jazz, I couldn't step into a jazz band and hang with any of those guys. My knowledge of music theory is definitely not up to par enough to do anything like that. But you kind of you have that moment where you start to click with each other, and I think being in a band, specifically for me anyway, makes me a better musician, because it stops being about, oh, I can do this, and more about what serves the song and what serves everybody else. And it's like you kind of get forced to do things right. Someone says, oh, it would be a really great part if you did this, and you go, I don't know how to do that, but the song needs it, and you kind of you force your way into doing it, if that makes sense. Yeah, I found that, and that kind of grows your musical catalog, your tricks, if you will, of the trade that you have at your disposal, at your fingertips.
We've been doing that a lot lately.
We have. There's some new music.
New music coming. Yeah.
That I'm really proud of, really excited. We'll be doing live here shortly.
Yeah. Fun stuff that we're going to do. But yes, just, I mean, we are going into territory that we've not really delved much into before. We've done things, pretty, I'm going to say square, but not in the way that,
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
I'm talking about like
we played some things safe.
Like before. This wall is square. Like it's to a T. A what? I don't know what the word is. Extra polish, I guess, on it. Where that it seems like now we're sort of feeling that. We're sort of saying you have this many bars to do this. Do it, whatever it is. If we don't like it, we'll change it.
Right. Yeah. There's more freedom, I think. And that's something that comes from playing together. And the more you play together, the more you learn each other, and there is freedom in that.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I'll tell people, and I've told people this before, who are trying to gain confidence and who are trying to maybe do things, and I've been guilty of this, stepping out on stage and doing things that I wasn't ready for. Get familiar with the parameters.
Yeah.
Get familiar with the, if it's a song, know the song the back of your hand.
Yep.
Front to back. Once you know the playground you're on, you can slide down the slide.
Yeah.
You can monkey around on the monkey bars.
Yeah.
But if you don't know where the slide is or how tall it is, if you don't know how far off the ground the monkey bars are or where the next one is, you'll be completely lost.
Yeah.
So find your area and then play around in it. Have fun in it, but know the area like the back of your hand.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's what we've been trying to explore more and more with the new music that we've been doing, because we're constantly trying to learn. I think that if all we ever did in this band was improve as musicians and singers, and if we never played another gig, we could say that we learned.
Oh, absolutely.
We learned something. And I think that's got to be like ground zero for somebody that's like, every time I step in this practice room with you all or just by myself, even when you're not here, it feels like everybody's here in a way, where that I'm trying to gauge what everybody else is doing and how that it might sound. But when we come down here to be rough, to be unlearned, but that out of that ignorance we are seeking to gain the knowledge to put together something that's musical and sounds correct, and it feels good, and is, dare I say, spiritual in a way. That's what we come down here to do, and we hammer that out, and then we take it out somewhere. But you're totally right. Knowing the song, knowing where, you don't have to know what licks you're going to do. You just got to know what, like you said, that's perfect.
How it's gonna fit. Yeah.
You got to know how it's going to fit. And one thing that I love is that we'll just tell each other, if it doesn't if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Yes. And if it doesn't feel good, it don't feel good. And but you have to have it. You have to have somebody that can listen to it and say, this isn't working.
There, here in the practice space, more so than after a concert, but there have definitely been times, whether during a practice or riding home in the van, one of us has gone, that thing you did, don't do that again. or save that for later. Or sometimes there's been, man, that thing you did there, that was good.
Yeah, keep doing it.
There's some, instances of just different places and songs that I think of that now. And that's what it takes. It takes human interaction and feedback.
Yeah. Because if you're not willing to take constructiveness, and it's never snobby. No. Or like, I can't. The thing is, if any of us does something in that moment, I completely believe that in that moment we believed that it would work. Oh yeah. If it doesn't work, we believed at the time that it would work. We believed
that it would before we did it. Yeah.
And when it doesn't, man, it's a bummer. and a lot of times, sometimes we don't even have to say it. Like, we all just know. And one of us will be like, well, I'm never doing that again. Yeah. And everybody will be like, well, we're glad that you're not thinking about it. So, yeah.
No, that's true. And even putting a set together, I think something that people in Christian music miss out on, or haven't, and this took me a little while to grasp, and I'm going to name drop here. I'm very sorry.
Oh boy!
But I'm going big. But something that Ben Isaacs told us.
Oh, okay.
He said, every song can't be a moment.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of people in their set, they try to make every song a moment.
Yep.
And you can't do that. You will absolutely wear an audience out. But if by the third song you're trying to make that just the moment,
it just doesn't work.
They're done.
Yeah.
They're done. And there's an ebb and flow to it. You have to build things. You have to, it's kind of a series of mountains and valleys, and it has to be different enough to hold attention, but not so wildly erratic that you're just all over the place. Because I've seen some, and I think in time past we've been guilty maybe of doing that.
Oh, yeah.
Where we just kind of do this, and people are trying to follow, and it's difficult. And so there's an art to that, to holding attention and knowing where your moment should be, and knowing, kind of what your mission is.
Mm-hmm.
You should go into it knowing what point that you really want to drive home.
Yeah.
A pastor does not get up for his Sunday sermon that he's studied all week for, he's read, he's prayed, and yes, he allows the Spirit to use him, and he, allows for that to work through him and give him the words to say. But typically he doesn't stand up not knowing what he wants the church to know.
Yeah.
Most of the time, there's at least a point that he wants to drive home. A point that God has given him that he wants to drive home. And I think there shouldn't be anything different about that. Why should we expect music to be any less prepared? Sure. Why should we expect ourselves to be unprepared when we step on a stage? And,
it's the feeling, it's the difference between having a service or concert feel super long, super over the top, as far as like just feel like you've been there for hours. And it's the difference between that and something feeling like you can't believe you just got to the end of it.
Yeah.
Like, how did we... Somebody had a very pointed conversation with me about that one time, and it was about us. And they were like, you got to change some things. It was like, you need to be more dynamic.
Yeah.
Because I can tell... They were like, I can tell that I'm sitting through it.
Right.
And not experiencing something.
Right.
And I was like, oh, boy. I guess we need to do something about that.
Yeah. I've definitely been there. I've been on both sides of it. I have sat through an hour-long concert, and by the end of it thought, I'm sore.
Yeah. Can't believe it's... Yeah.
Yeah. I can't believe it's only been an hour.
Yeah.
And on the flip side of that, I've sat through a 2.5-hour concert, or a 2 hour and 45-minute concert, where by the end of it, I was just like, I need more.
Yeah,
there has to be more.
Yeah,
and I think that's the idea of just it's like, you know, a good solid 2 hour movie that when it gets to the end of it, you're just like, oh man,
wish there was more.
Wish there was more. And you walk out and you're like, those characters in that movie, and they kind of live up there with you. Well, when you walk out from a Christian concert, you ought to be thinking, that message, those songs, that message, and that was fantastic. I got, and you take that home, and the words kind of start to go over in your head, and you start thinking about that, and hopefully it ministers to you as you go throughout your week, rather than walking out of it and going, what was it about?
Yeah.
What were they singing about?
Yeah.
And yeah.
There was a message that I'll do a name drop though. Now, one Tony Stevens.
Yeah.
He was delivering a message. He was doing a series. I think it was just a couple weeks though. I think. Anyways, he had brought out some really great truths in this sermon. It was truly a good message. And the way that he delivered the sermon and the way that it was put forth, when he got to the end of it, like everybody seemed collectively at one time to just have almost like a gasp or just like an edge of their seat, and then somebody's like, all right, well, fun's over, and everybody's like, oh. Well, he did that. And if I fully believe that if he would have done it any other way, or delivered it any other way, that it would not have worked the way that it did. And I wasn't there that next Sunday because I think we were playing somewhere else, helping out with the worship team. But I feel like that it was one of those deals where that he laid it out in such a way that it left people looking forward to next Sunday.
Right.
As if, and that's the same that we want to be, that I feel like everybody should be, is that you want people to have left feeling that they could come right back in and listen to it for another 2 hours or however long.
Yeah. Yeah. it's the difference between like the sermon that sticks with you that you can talk about on Monday, as opposed to, you literally leave the building and then think, where do you preach from again? What was that? And I've been in both places.
Yeah, more often than not, unfortunately. But I'm with you. I've listened to those. I mean, internet's a wonderful thing. YouTube's a wonderful thing, and you can find some great ones on there. Mm-hmm. And I've got a hold of some that got a hold of me. Yeah. And just wouldn't let go. And it was like time flew by. And when it got to the end, I was like, man.
I feel like I need to get saved all over again.
I'm just like, I need to do something about myself. Yeah.
No, I've been there. Certainly. Well, this has been fun.
It has been fun. Did we ever get to the meat of what we were going to talk about?
I think we sort of. We've danced around it. Well, we were talking about genres and just this state of Christian music in general. So, I'm not. I am hopeful. I want to put that out there.
Yeah.
I'm not as negatively as I might view certain things in the modern Christian music industry. I don't think we are past the point of repair. I am hopeful, and I see certain things and certain people that are starting to give me some hope that things may take an upturn. And I'm hoping as things kind of open back up, I feel like there's gonna be a big resurgence.
Yeah.
In the music industry as a whole.
Sure.
Because people have kind of missed things. I know I certainly have. And so I don't want anybody to get the idea that I'm just saying it's doom and gloom and there's no hope. And
right.
I think our existence alone, that we're together having fun doing what we're doing, enjoying what we're doing. There's an audience for what we do. There are people who enjoy what we do. That alone gives me hope that I'm not saying we're the ones out here that are single-handedly going to save it, but I'm just saying it gives me hope that the avenue is in place for us to be able to do what we do and enjoy it, and other people enjoy it as well.
Yeah.
That is definitely hopeful for me.
Yeah. So. For sure. I think that's good words, wise words from the Joshua Tomlin, Esquire.
The Honorable.
The Honorable.
Well, I tell you what.
Yeah.
We'll we can close this out here, and then if you would like to come see us, because this will get posted before any of these things happen. We're working on our dates for this year, but two things that are going to be coming up. March the 19th, that's a Friday night, at the Kentucky Opry, which is located in the Benton-Draytonville area of Kentucky, which is in Marshall County. We will be there in concert Friday, March the 19th. That begins at 7 p.m. Central Time. Mm-hmm. And then on April 3rd, we'll be at the Lights of Liberty Theater. That's Saturday, April 3rd at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And that's the night before Easter. And I think it's going to be a fun night, though. So you can come out to that. The one at the Kentucky Opry, that's a free event. And then it's a ticketed event at the Lights of Liberty Theater. Tickets are $10. You can get those at the door. And for more information, you can always visit our website, www.cumberlandthunder.com. You can find other music here on our YouTube channel. You can also find our album, Lost All Control. It's on Spotify and Apple Music, iTunes, all of that good stuff. And, yeah, check it out.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll be seeing all of you down the road before too long. Leave a comment. Let us know where you're watching from. Especially if you're maybe someone who has just stumbled across this. If you're new to Cumberland Thunder, this is 2/4 of it right here.
Yep.
And like I said, we'll be having Abby on and Seth on, and we'll hopefully have some guests. So as we kind of figure out what the podcast is and the format of it, we hope you'll come along on that journey with us. And of course, you know, the whole socials thing. We got Facebook. We got Instagram. Occasionally we get on Twitter. Yeah.
Very occasionally.
Very occasionally. Facebook and Instagram are pretty active, though.
Yeah.
So, and of course, right here on YouTube. Any final words of wisdom for the people?
I don't think so. I think you've covered it. Yeah, if you have any questions or comments, if you want to, maybe you want to suggest a topic.
Yeah, we'll take topic suggestions. You can leave that in a comment below. Or you can even find our email address on our website. All that good stuff.
Or if you just thought it was all ramblings and we should put ourselves on something else.
Exactly.
I've really enjoyed it, though. I mean,
it's been fun.
I'm a terrible, Josh knows this. I'm a terrible, I can't articulate my thoughts very well in the moment. It takes me a second of explaining.
Okay.
But, you know, if you do stick it out through these videos or audio, whatever you happen to be listening on, thank you. And any input would be very welcome. And, you know, yeah. Jesus, man. We love you.
Jesus, man. Yeah, we love you guys.
It's all so dated. We're getting so old.
Yeah. The older I get, I tell you, the younger everybody else seems.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
We love you all.
Oh my good Lord.
So long, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Time for another ski.